Okay, so once again, tonight's program is entitled County Referral, a Department of State overview of GML 239 and Dutchess County highlights. As always, we're thrilled to welcome our friends from the New York State Department of State Local Government Training Program. Tonight we have Trish Burke and Ebony Mapp with us to present the 239 overview. Following their portion of the class will be Jennifer Kokoza. She's Deputy Commissioner of the Dutchess County Department of Planning and Development, and she'll present some Dutchess County specific information regarding 239 referrals. So with that, I think I'm going to turn the stage over to Trish, if memory serves.
Okay, thank you, Heather. Hello, everyone, and welcome to our presentation. Tonight, I will be co-presenting with Ebony Mapp. We are both trainers at the Department of State Division of Local Government, and our role at the Department of State is to provide technical and legal advice to local government officials. You can do so by telephone, by email, or by writing to us, and no question is too little or too silly or too insignificant. So feel free to reach out to us. We are a good resource for you, as are your county planners. So thank you for having us tonight. Heather, I know you mentioned training for the rest of the year, but the Department of State is still putting up training opportunities for folks trying to fulfill their 4 hours of annual training requirements by the end of the year. So we usually have a couple more evening webinars around 5 o'clock or so that we try to make available for people trying to fulfill those requirements to the end of the year, when there's usually a rush to fulfill that. So tonight we're going to be talking about county referrals. And, you know, it seems to be mysterious for a lot of people throughout the state. I still get questions from some boards and board members that have no idea that they were even supposed to refer certain applications to the county for review. So hopefully we'll demystify some of that this evening. And under General Municipal Law 239M, a county planning department reviews certain developments throughout the county for intermunicipal and county-wide impacts. This presentation explains why a county must review certain applications, specifically what the county is looking for during the review of these applications, and what municipalities need to know, and what to expect during the review and the referral process. In this bottom teal colored box here, it says General Municipal Law, GMU, sections L, M, and N. We have a publication on the department's website called The Guide to Planning and Zoning. It's a free publication. It's available in PDF or to look at online, or we can send it to you. But I recommend that every review board or local government official get their hands on a copy of this, because it really is a handy resource. It's divided into 3 parts: village law, town law, and general city law. And it has just the statutes that a review board or a local government official would need to look at quickly to, you know, in layman's terms, what it is and what the statute is. And so if you're looking for 239M, you would just open up the part to General Municipal Law, and it would describe the referral process for anyone. And, you know, we might have other references to it throughout this presentation, but there it is in case you need it. And this presentation is for municipal officials who handle applications for use in area variances, site plan reviews, special use permits, and subdivisions. And officials who work on comprehensive plans, the adoption or amendments of zoning or zoning maps, zoning ordinances, etc. They'll also benefit from this guide. And New York State General Municipal Law, Article B, Section 239M. I always remember the M, you know, for mandatory review. So 239M requires that municipal boards refer certain planning actions to the county for review. And the purpose of the law is to encourage local board members to consider the county-wide and intermunicipal impacts of their local land use decision. If a county charter doesn't designate a county planning board to evaluate 239M referrals, then often a county planning department is given the authority to review and respond to those referrals. Next slide, please. And there are a lot of municipal benefits to referrals. The county planning agency may provide professional assistance to your local boards. You know, a lot of boards, especially in rural communities, they don't have a professional planner on their municipal staff. And oftentimes people that staff these boards are lay people that are serving. And that's why getting your training is so important. But if you don't have someone you can rely on in your local office, and then you can often look to the county, because the county is staffed with professional planners. Most of their services are free, or maybe they are at a very discounted price, making them within the reach of most municipalities. So, you know, lean on your county for professional services, as well as contacting the Department of State. Another benefit to the 239M referral is that you can identify potential intermunicipal impacts as soon as possible, before they happen, before shovels are in the ground and money is spent. And the whole idea here is that the county is taking a larger regional look, you know, like a macro look at what's going on. Like, you might be only in one little corner of your county, and you may not realize that the project that you are considering could have an impact on, you know, sewer and water infrastructure or housing, or, you know, this new project may have an impact on tourism and your recreational resources. Other people may be coming to your community, you know, traveling through your community and using your resources. And the county may be able to take a good look at that and say, hey, don't forget, this is going on in another part of the county, and it's gonna conflict with your land use. Or maybe it won't conflict, but hey, maybe it's gonna be a good collaboration, and let's consider X, Y, and Z to make this an even better collaboration, an even better project. 239M can also ensure that you are following the legal procedures, and that way you can better preserve your local board decisions if you are ever challenged in court. Now, throughout this presentation and all of our presentations really at the Department of State, we try to remind boards of the importance of having a checklist or a timeline or something, so that you as review board members know as a guide that you're not skipping over something important, that you didn't overlook it. It really helps you so that you know you're not skipping over something. And if you are ever challenged, you know, you could lose the action on a procedural miss, and you don't want to do that. And if you do the 239M, the county can recommend needed modifications that otherwise might be considered controversial, or they can disapprove an application because it's a controversial application. And this can take the pressure off you as local review boards and off of your municipality. Sometimes a municipality or your local officials, your governing board, you know, have you ever heard of this word NIMTOO, NIMTOO, not in my term of office? Sometimes they don't want a project because it's so controversial. They don't want to deal with it in their term of office. It's like NIMBY, not in my backyard. The municipality or the residents may feel that they don't want this project, and they can be breathing down the necks of review board members and making their decisions more difficult. And the county can make that decision, and at least you can look back to the county's decision and say, hey, it wasn't just us. Look, the county made this recommendation as well, and they're professionals, and they took all this other information into consideration when they came to this conclusion. So that can really take some pressure off you at the local level as well. Next slide, please. And your county planning agency, the county legislative body determines what the county planning agency is for the purpose of the 239M and the 239N review. And the county planning agency isn't always the county planning board. The county legislators may designate the review authority to the county planning board, or they can designate another board, a different department, or an individual, such as the county planning director. Just yesterday, I was on a call with somebody who had a question about a referral because their county didn't have a county planning agency, and they didn't have a county planning department either. And that was Franklin County. And so I was speaking to the county supervisor and asking, well, how does this happen if you don't have, how does 239 happen when you don't have, a county planning board or a county planning agency? And she told me, well, the legislature designates the county supervisor to review these applications. And, as a backup, they also have the APA helping out on that review, and they rely on seeker. But I was kind of curious about that. And I said, well, if the idea for county review is to look at these impacts at the county level, how are you doing that as, a single person? So I imagine there's a lot of pressure on a single person versus a board looking at regional impacts. But there you go. There's a good example of where it happens different in the rest of New York State. Next slide, please. So what is a public body? A public body, you have to have a quorum to conduct any of the public's business. A quorum means a majority of a fully constituted board. A fully constituted board means that you include all of those seats that are temporarily vacant, or the seats that are vacant because somebody just couldn't make it to the meeting that time for any other reason. So you need a majority of a fully constituted board to have a quorum so that you can legally conduct the public's business. And the public's business is subject to the open meetings law. The two key components of open meetings are access for the public. And the public means anyone with a heartbeat. They do not have to be a resident of your municipality. They don't have to be a New York State resident. They don't have to be a United States resident. They don't even have to speak English. But you have to provide people with the ability to watch and to listen to the business at hand. The second component of open meetings law means that you have to provide notice to the public and to the media. Providing notice to the public means providing notice to the press. You can just post your meeting notices once a year with all of your monthly dates on there. If you want, that would count. You have to post notice in a conspicuous place and make sure, or try to make sure, that that is not a moving target, meaning it's not on a certain bulletin board one month and out on the telephone pole next month. It should be where the people in your community can expect to find notices and important messages, like a constant place where they can expect to find things. And if you have a municipal website, and most municipalities do by now, and hopefully it's regularly updated, but all of this information should be posted on your website as well. And recently the law changed so that any applications, documents, text, whatever the review board is considering in their deliberations, that also needs to be available within 24 hours for the public's access as well. Upon request, or you can scan it, even better, scan that information and put it on your website. It's all in the spirit of open government, and you do these things to the best extent practicable, meaning you do your best to get them out there. There are times when it's just not possible, but in the spirit of open meetings, like you do your honest best to do that. So your noticing time frames are based on when your meeting is scheduled. If your meeting is scheduled more than 1 week, then you should post your notice at least 72 hours in advance. That's 3 days. And if it's less than 1 week, again, post your notice to the extent practicable. There are times when you have special meetings or emergency meetings. This should not be the norm. They should be special exceptions and emergencies, but you would just post your notice as soon as possible. So that's about all I have to say on public bodies, except that our governor has kept the ability to have remote meetings. We've extended that, she's extended that until January 15th of 2020. So next slide, please. And there are limitations on the county board members. So if you are also a member of the local referring body, so if you also sit on your planning board or your ZBA, then you can't vote or participate in any county level deliberation on a referral from the board in which you serve. So if you're on the ZBA and you represent your municipality on the county board and an application comes before you, then you can't participate in that. And best practice is to remove yourself from the room, not just to sit there and not say anything, but it's best to physically sit in the audience or leave the room so that you really won't be having any undue influence over that application. So no person shall be precluded from serving as a member of a county planning board as appointed by the county legislative body pursuant to 239C, because a member is elected or an appointed official of the county or of the municipality. And a member of the county planning board should excuse himself or herself from any deliberation or vote relating to a matter or proposal before the county planning board, which is or has been the subject of a proposal, application, or a vote before the municipal board of which he or she is a member. Next slide. And Ebony, now I'm turning it over to you.
Thank you much. Okay, so as Trish mentioned earlier, General Municipal Law 239M is what gives New York's county planning agencies the authority to review local actions and provide input in the form of recommendations. So that's the part of the law that lays out what actions involving local land use are subject to referral. It says who's going to do the referring, what body is going to refer to the county planning agency. It also dictates when a referral is triggered. It dictates the responsibility of the county to make a timely recommendation, and also how the referring body can respond to that recommendation, as well as the necessary timeframes when all of this should be taking place. Actions that are subject to referral include those listed on this slide. It's the adoption of a comprehensive plan or zoning adoption or amendment, use and area variances, special use permits, site plans, and other actions that the referring body might allow under their zoning laws or local laws, and we'll get into that a little bit later. County planning agencies can also be authorized by their specific county legislative body to review subdivisions, so that is an option for some municipalities. Each of these actions are referred to the county by the local entity that is responsible for making the final decision on the action itself. So for instance, if the action is a use variance, then it's the ZBA that does the referring. For a comp plan, it would be the local governing body like the village board, town board, city council, etc. that makes that final decision. They'll be the body that would refer review of that comprehensive plan to the county planning agency. For a site plan, it might be the planning board. Well, usually it's the planning board because usually it's the planning board that does the review. Some municipalities, it's the ZBA, but regardless, whoever is making the decision on that application at the very end is the body that will be referring to the county planning agency. But it's also important to note that these actions don't get referred to the county planning agency in every single instance. It's only when they're triggered by distance, and we'll talk about that next. If I can advance my own slide, let's see, there we go. So if the site of a proposed action is within 500 feet of any of the listed on this slide sheet, any of the listed boundaries or locations, then it must be referred to the county planning agency. So if the action is within 500 feet of a municipal boundary of a state or county park or recreation area, the right-of-way of a state or county road, right-of-way of a county-owned stream or drainage channel, et cetera, et cetera. You see the slide. I don't want to read to you guys. I'm sure you know how to read, otherwise you wouldn't be here. A good rule of thumb, though, would be like in terms of like keeping all of this straight when you get an application and you know, doing doing your due diligence to make sure to determine whether, you know, the site of this application is within any of these boundaries or meets any of these distance requirements. A good rule of thumb would be to prepare a map with these areas that are shaded, like you see here on the slide to the right, so that you can basically plot or see where each application site is located in reference to those boundaries. And a shaded map like this is really a great tool, in my opinion, especially if you don't have access to GIS software that, you know, some planning bodies may have, but you know, most of the planning board members, I would imagine, in our audience probably would not have access to that. So having a shaded map is a really great tool, and it works well as a ready reference. So we strongly recommend that. There's also a requirement that adjacent municipalities be notified when a hearing for any special use permit, use variance, site plan, or subdivision that's proposed on property within 500 feet of the adjacent property. The adjacent municipality kind of comes before your board. This basically gives your neighbor the opportunity. When I say neighbor, I'm referring to your, you know, that adjacent municipality. This gives them the opportunity to attend the hearing and, you know, be heard on the matter. If they choose, they can choose to ignore it. It's up to them, but you're providing them with an option when you give them notice. So unlike county referral, there's no requirement for feedback or a response or a recommendation from that adjacent municipality. You as the referring body are just providing notice. That's it. If you've heard Trish talk about this before, you'd hear her, you know, mention, she'd call it the nice neighbor law, I think. If I don't have that right, Trish, correct me, but normally that's what she refers to it as. And really it makes sense because you're doing the conscientious thing, right? You're doing the conscientious thing by making your neighbor aware of land use actions in your municipality that could possibly affect them and their plans for their municipality. So in any case, the referring body must send the notice via mail or electronic transmission to the clerk of the adjacent municipality at least 10 days prior to any hearing on the action. Keep that in mind. So now getting back to county referral specifically, there are some actions that are not subject to referral by the county, and these tend to be fairly minor. So they include things like the zoning interpretations that a ZBA will do, area variances for farms located within agricultural districts, which also the ZBA would consider. The referral body can enter into a written agreement with the county planning agency to exempt other actions that are not listed in this statute from review as well. So again, these are going to be things that tend to be pretty minor. So for instance, a municipality may say or agree with the county planning agency that, you know, lot line adjustments that meet the distance triggers don't have to be referred at all. So even if it's in the boundaries of that, you know, the 500-foot boundary of an adjacent municipality or you know, any of the other triggers from that list that we showed you in the last few slides, you're saying nope. You know, if it's a lot line adjustment and it hits that trigger, don't send it to you. Don't send it to us because it's too minor. It's unlikely that a lot line adjustment would be regionally significant or have a large impact. Because, you know, basically it's just a change in size or shape of an existing lot, nothing more. There's nothing else. There's nothing monumental happening there, right? So it makes sense to exempt those from referral. And so through written agreement, you can do that with your county planning agency. And so here are a few more examples. Like if you have a special use permit for accessory structures, on residential property, again, it's just going to be like a, let's say a pergola or a gazebo, a shed, something like that. That's not regionally significant, right? Area variances for a fence. You want to move the fence over a few feet or take it a little higher. Again, not monumental. Site plan review for a change in tenant where the modification of the building footprint is less than 10%. So that just means someone is expanding an existing structure. Maybe it's someone adding on an addition to their home, or a business adding in an outdoor patio or a covered or enclosed patio area to the back of the restaurant or something like, again, not monumental, not necessary for referral, because there isn't likely to be a regional impact. And I believe Trish will talk about the full statement that you send to the county planning agencies next.
All right, thanks, Ebony. And back to that 239NN, I call it be a nice neighbor. Another good thing to mention is, if you're on a planning board, use that to your advantage. When other municipalities are sending the 239N to you, like, you should be reviewing those as, a point of business, just so that you're not caught off guard with another project, that may have an impact on your housing or your transportation or your recreational needs. So it's, works both ways. You have to send them out, but maybe as a good part of business, make it a habit to ask to see those as part of your regular planning board business. So just a little reminder about that. So on to the full statements. This is an overview slide of what we're going to be taking a closer look at coming up, but your submission requirements are described in detail at the local level, and that can be the application for the proposed action and all of the materials that you will be required to send to the county. And that will also include any municipally sponsored action materials like the comprehensive plan or the adoption of zoning for the first time or any amendments to your zoning. A full statement will also include the agricultural data statement, perhaps. It will also sometimes include environmental information like the environmental assessment form as part of the environmental review process. So next slide, please. So as I mentioned before, the full statement, this is going to be decided at the local level, and your county planning agency and the referring body can draw up an agreement to increase those submission standards as to what constitutes a full statement. Some examples are the county referral form. I'm not sure if you have a form at Dutchess County, but we can send you examples of what other municipalities are using. Another thing to check out, Cayuga County, I was on their website the other day, and I thought theirs was pretty well done at the county level. And as Ebony was talking about those referral agreements and those referral exceptions, they had them listed right out there, what was being exempted, which municipalities within the county were participating. It was pretty straightforward. So I think there's a lot to be learned from checking out other people's county pages, and then you can see what you might be missing or how you could do something better. But I know that you guys have a pretty good online system already that you'll be discussing later on tonight. So good for you. Dutchess County seems to be at the forefront of that. And if your county doesn't have an agreement, then the county can write in their recommended submission standards. It's as simple as that. but the more information that you are collecting from the municipalities, or that the municipalities are referring to the county board, it just makes sense that your decision making will be all the better, because you'll be relying on much more information to give you a better picture. Next slide, please. And one of the things that possibly you could be requiring is the agricultural data statement if you have agricultural lands. And this helps with the coordination of the agricultural districts program. It reviews possible impacts of a proposed project on functioning farm operations. And, New York is having a crisis with its conversion of agricultural lands for other uses, for residential development, for, solar farms, renewable energy. We are losing our agricultural lands at breakneck speeds. And this ag data statement is providing more information for the review board to make a better decision. And it's good because not everybody on the county board is from an agricultural area. Maybe you only have one municipality represented who has an agricultural area. And so the other people reviewing these applications will only be enriched by the information on the ag assessment, the ag data statement, because they may not have any other ag experience otherwise, or really know the rural qualities of that municipality before making a decision. And the trigger for that ag data statement, it could be subdivision, site plan review, the special use permit, or a use variance. And it includes things like the applicant's name. And remember, the applicant isn't always the owner. So there's a spot there for the owner as well. It includes a map showing where the project is and the farm operations borders. And again, it really helps the review board to evaluate those potential impacts, because we are trying to make it easier for New York farms to stay in active agricultural production and not to have adjacent land uses or nearby land uses, impacting those farming operations. Next slide, please. So Seeker, we do a 2-hour show on Seeker. So this is a very brief overview. And Seeker requires all state and local governmental agencies to consider the environmental impacts equally with social and economic factors during a discretionary decision-making process. So think of Seeker as strictly an information gathering process. It's not a red light and it's not a green light to a project. Just consider it your opportunity to ask more questions from the applicant or the owner so that you can, make a really well-informed decision. And the county planning department can really be an advisory resource to help you to evaluate and to determine what any negative environmental impacts there may be. And as far as Seeker is concerned, a full statement must include Part 1 of the Environmental Assessment Form, the EAF. There are 2 versions of the EAF, the short form and the full form. If it's the short form that you're using, you can use that for unlisted actions and for type 2 actions if your locality requires an environmental assessment form. If you have a type 1 project and an unlisted project, your municipality requires the long version of that EAF. And any other materials that are required by the referring body in making a determination of significance. So a determination of significance, this is a written decision made by the lead agency that a proposal is likely to have an adverse environmental impact. So an EIS is required. And the purpose of the referral is for the county planning board to review the same material and to make a recommendation to the lead agency. So the county is going to be referring the same material that the local board is reviewing, excuse me. And this bullet here that says determination of significance is not required. This means that the determination of significance isn't required for the county to receive a full statement and to respond. And that was settled in this matter of Batavia First versus the town of Batavia. You know, the fact that the town of Batavia had the same information that the county did meant that they were all reviewing, the courts found that they were all reviewing the same information. And so the determination of significance wasn't required on the county's end for them to proceed with their review. So technically, as far as seeker is concerned, a review board has 20 days for that local board to make their determination of significance. And it's a little goofy. It's a little hard to understand because for the county review gets 30 days to review the application, but the local board only gets 20 days to make that determination of significance. So it's a little strange if you're doing your seeker timeline. Again, if you're using your checklist, that will really help you because you will have those dates identified and you won't make that mistake. And if you have any questions with that, you can contact us at the Department of State or, a call to your county planners. And, we always like to say, when in doubt, send it out. If you're not sure if it's, subject to county review, send it out. Of course, you should always call and ask first, but when in doubt, if you should include some materials for the in the full statement, by all means, include them, send them along. When in doubt, send it out. So next slide, please. So what is the full statement? What constitutes, receipt? In addition to the 239M review form, the municipality must include the following items in their applications. All materials required by the municipality and submitted as part of the application, a completed seeker form, part 1, if it's applicable, and all other materials required by the municipality to make its determination of significance pursuant to seeker. And the clock starts ticking when the county receives the full statement. So that 30-day review period begins when the county gets the full statement. And this means it's received by the county in accordance with the county planning agency's rules and regulations in respect to person, place, and the period of time for submission. If you don't have any county rules, then receipt means the day the county planning board receives the referral by hand or by the date that it is postmarked. And that is really important. These are calendar days. It's important, again, when you're using your timeline or your checklist, because you don't want to miss a date and leave the door open for litigation in the future by some procedural mishap that you screwed up, that something wasn't technically clocked in. Like, you really don't want to make any of these little procedural mistakes. So use a checklist, and that way you will know exactly when that clock starts ticking for the 30-day review period. And now it's back over to Ebony.
Yes, so there's a specific time frame when each application that you'll typically have to refer to a county planning agency must be referred by. So for instance, for special use permits and site plans that require a public hearing, the full statement must be sent to the county planning agency at least 10 days prior to the public hearing. Now, for municipalities that do not require a public hearing for their site plan review applications, the The referral must take place before the final action on the application is made. So by final action, I'm referring to the decision. So you must refer it to the county planning agency prior to making a decision on the application. Now for subdivisions, referral to the county is only required when the county legislative body has allowed it or authorized it. So that may not be applicable to every municipality in a county, but certainly to some if the county legislative body has allowed it. And for variances, the referral must be sent at least 5 days prior to the public hearing. So the county will likely, I mean, just like you, if you are reviewing an application, you're going to have certain review criteria that you use to look at the application and kind of assess its merits. And so the county is likely to do the same thing. They're likely to have many of the same elements, review elements that the local referring body would also have or would be using to do their review. But also remember, though, that the county is using their knowledge about what's happening in nearby municipalities to inform their review of the action that you've sent to them. And they're doing that, and they're able to do that, or that's their whole purpose, right? Of doing that is so that they can gauge the impact of whatever the proposal is on the larger area or the region. So the county may be looking at, whether the proposed land is compatible with the surrounding uses beyond your municipality's boundaries, whether the proposal will create traffic impacts or erode community character. There may be drainage concerns in the area that they're, checking on. They also may be looking at whether the proposal will conflict with the stated goals of a neighboring municipality's comp plan or their development policies or something. I mean, you would want to know if a giant borrow pit or timber operation or something was going to be proposed across the boundary line area of your municipality, when your municipality right across that boundary line has plans to designate your portion of that area as a natural area or a nature preserve or something like that. You'd want to know if something that big and different would be, trying to make its way to that area. And so you'd also want someone with planning expertise and local knowledge to offer some strategies to limit any negative impacts, or even help you advocate through a recommendation for denial that it not be approved, right? So again, this just kind of underscores the value of having this relationship with the county planning agency to review your actions, both those that are required by state law, but also, others that you may, just want some insight on. Next, I'm going to move this slide. Oops. I'm distracted by the movement at the bottom of the slide. So anyway, for example, perhaps your municipality is planning the redevelopment of one or more of its corridors and has to review a site plan that's going to be for a new development that is also proposed along that corridor. So just like the planning board or whoever the referring body is, the county will likely look at things like, is the site suitable for what's being proposed? How does it fit with the existing or developments in the area or any planned new developments in the area? Are there any, where are the access points? Not where, not are there, where are the access points? Are new curb cuts going to be necessary? Are all of the new curb cuts that are proposed even necessary? They could be looking at things like that. With regards to topography, they may say, well, will the site need to include retaining walls or need some type of significant grade changes in order to be workable based on what they already know about the site pre-development? As far as drainage, there may be questions about flooding issues in the area. And, if there are, they will want to, they'd be looking at the plans to determine what the method that the applicant has proposed to address it. And if they have proposed something to address that issue, is it sufficient to meet the problem and to mitigate it or, neutralize it? They may be looking at things like community character, signage, and on and on and on. Again, the county planning agency will be using their knowledge about planning in general, but also other projects in the area, in the county, that may impact or be impacted by what's proposed for the site under review by your board. And really, you should think of your county planning agency as a valuable resource anyway. I mean, Trish has already said this, and I'll just echo it. You know, they're a valuable resource beyond just the requirements of county referral. You know, they may be able to offer advice or support in a number of areas that may include those listed on this slide. You know, impact on traffic, impact on community appearance, impact on drainage and community facilities. I know we were talking about that, that corridor redevelopment example. I mean, these are other examples of things they may check for on that type of review. But even still, even if it's not something that is statutorily required, again, having this relationship to me is just, it seems like such a valuable resource. When I was a planner at a local municipality, I would have loved to have the county planning agency as a resource to my planning agency. I just can't tell you how fortunate you are. And so, you know, these are just other items that they will likely look at. And it's also important to note that while the county planning agency is reviewing the full statement that Trish was talking to us about, the referring body is not, and I mean, I'm repeating it again, is not deliberating and making a decision on the application before them. State statute requires that the referring body must give the county planning agency 30 days to review the full statement and provide a written recommendation in response. So this means that if your planning board or ZBA, let's say, you know, is reviewing a site plan application and you refer it to the county planning agency, that all action by your board on the matter comes to a halt, either until you get a response. I mean, well, it comes to a halt for up to 30 days, either until you get a response or the 30 days passes, whichever comes first. But you have to wait until that time frame or that time period ends, that expires, before deciding on that application. Or, you know, like I said, if the planning agency gets it to you in less than 30 days, that's great. Then you can move forward to a decision, but you're not making a decision before either of those two options happen. However, the county planning agency and the referring body can agree to extend the period beyond 30 days. And that's similar to, you know, the other agreements that we're talking about, like exempting specific actions from review. It's similar to that, but in this case, it's applied to the review period. So if you feel that you have the ability to wait a little longer, you don't get a lot of controversial projects, or, you know, for whatever the reason may be, you can certainly have a written agreement with your county planning agency to make that a reality, that beyond 30-day period a reality. And I will say, you know, it's not as that far-fetched in terms of, like, you know, people saying, or people wanting to, or boards rather, wanting to make a decision before that period has passed, or even before they've referred it to the county planning agency, because it's a question that we get fairly often. I know I'm asked the question often, and, you know, someone will say, well, you know, can the referring body decide to, you know, approve an application, but have a condition that, you know, the application is approved on the condition that it's also recommended for approval by the county planning agency? And so I'll try to say that a little simpler. They're asking, can this application go forward? Can we say we're okay with it and it's approved, as long as the county planning agency signs off on it whenever they get to it, whenever they wrap up? And that way it moves it off of our docket and the applicant isn't waiting for us to make a decision. I mean, it's a reasonable question, especially, you know, for efficiency's sake, right? Just, again, getting it off your docket, being able to move on to other business. But really the answer is no. It really doesn't even make it that easy for your applicant because the applicant is still having to wait. But again, the referring body cannot vote on an action before meeting that statutory requirement, okay? That's required by state law to refer it to the county planning agency and waiting up to 30 days to obtain a response. Again, the idea here is to get a sense of the regional impact of a project or a proposal and include it in your decision-making process as the referring body, okay? If you vote without that input from the county planning agency, you have defeated the purpose of referring it to them in the first place, right? This is meant to be a resource. It's meant to be not micromanaging or anything like that. It's meant to be a resource and something to kind of make sure that everybody is dotting their I's and crossing their T's, making sure that we're doing our due diligence as we apply our local land use regulations. I mean, it's a big job, and most volunteers are laypersons, and so again, this is a resource. We can't stress that enough. It's a resource that should be taken advantage of. However, there is one caveat. If the county planning agency doesn't respond within 30 days, but does respond before the action is scheduled to be decided by your board and voted on, you can, well, the answer is a maybe with whether you can move forward or not. If the referring body receives the county's response at least 2 days before the scheduled meeting when the board will render its decision, then the referring body must consider the county's recommendation. I'll say that again. If you get that response at least 2 days before your meeting to decide on it, you have to consider the county's recommendation. You have to consider it. But if it's less than that, if you get the county's recommendation the day before or the day of, then you do not have to consider that as part of your decision-making process. You don't have to, review what they've said. You don't have to debate it or anything. You don't have to deal with it at all. However, I think personally, it's in your best interest to still consider it. You don't have to. You don't have to consider it in your decision, but it's in your best interest to consider it, especially if it raises significant concerns, right? Especially if it raises concerns that would otherwise be overlooked, right? So it makes sense to incorporate their input, but again, if you don't get it within that 2 day, well, at least 2 days before you have to make a decision, to give you adequate time to review it and digest it and all of that, then you don't have to. Next, Trish will talk about the timing of final approval. Oh, I'm sorry, I skipped this whole slide, but you've gotten it. Again, you have the option of not considering what the county planning agency has said if you get the recommendation less than 2 days before you have to decide. And now Trish will talk about the 2-day rule.
All right, I think you already covered the 2-day rule, but I'll just sum it up one more time.
Oh goodness, sorry.
Okay, so after 30 days, the referring body may act by a simple majority vote if they haven't received the county report. However, a report that arrives at the local level after the 30th day, but at least 2 days before the meeting at which the final decision is made, it has the same effect as one made within the original 30-day review period. So that's the weird twist on the 2-day rule. So next slide. Now we're getting to the actual recommendation from the county. So after reviewing the application, the county can make a recommendation to the referring body. The county planning department isn't a regulatory body, and therefore it has no authority to make the final decision. Again, when in doubt, send it out. Send out all that application and detailed information so the county board can make a good decision. So now I'm going to talk about the types of responses that the county can give. And the first one is called no jurisdiction. The county will respond to projects that don't fall under 239M with a quote, no authority, end quote. This means the county has no legal authority to review the application. This can be the most common with subdivision approval, as the county hasn't enacted the option that allows them to review subdivisions unless they require a site plan approval or a variance. The next recommendation or response could be called incomplete. And this means the county can't conduct a proper review without all of the documents relating to the application. The county will notify the referring body if the application is incomplete and list the documents that are required for the application to be complete. The county will not begin review of any referral until all necessary documents pertaining to the application are received. Again, have that checklist so that you're not caught in this cycle of sending something out and waiting for the county to take a look and say, oh, we need one more thing, and then sending it back. And it's just adding more delay. And, time is money for applicants, and not to mention the level of frustration that may be included in that too. Another response that they could have is the local concern. So the county will check the box on a response form stating that the county review has not revealed any significant intermunicipal or countywide impact, and the decision of the local board should be based solely on their findings in the facts of the case. And another one is local concern with comments. This is where the county finds the matter to be of some local, municipal, or regional concern, but its effects will be minimal on a county level. And the board is asked to take these comments into consideration when making its decision. And next we have a conditional response. This means the county finds the matter is of significant concern, namely some aspect of the proposal will have a substantial adverse effect. So the county provides conditions that must be met before the request can be granted. And that's kind of what Ebony was talking about. We do hear from people on boards, and I have sat in on a meeting where I've actually heard the board members say, yeah, it's a go. We're just waiting for the county to approve it. So these things really do happen. And finally, the last option is the denial. So the county feels the proposal is in direct conflict with the county policies, the local master plan, and or sound planning principles, and it'll have an adverse effect on the county. So it recommends that the board not grant the approval. And with any of these, the county must include the reason for their recommendation. So next slide, please. If the county issues a denial or a conditional recommendation, then the municipality must then abide by that recommendation unless the referring agency overrides the conditions or the denial with the majority plus one vote of the full board. That is called a supermajority vote. So it's a majority plus one. For example, it can be a 5-2 vote on a 7-person board. It's important to remember that a fully constituted board means all of those vacancies and all of those seats that you have yet to fill are included when you are considering that fully constituted board. It's not a majority of who shows up to vote that night. It's a majority of a fully constituted board making that decision. And again, to override the county's recommendation, you need a supermajority vote. So a majority of a fully constituted board plus one. And, when we're in person asking these questions, I would ask you to raise your hand and say, how many of you have ever overridden the county recommendation? And maybe this is a downstate thing versus an upstate versus a Western New York. And mostly no one raises their hand when we ask for who has overridden the county recommendation. When we ask, downstate in Long Island, we rarely get a hand going up. And for whatever reason, when we ask the same question in the western part of the state, plenty of people are raising their hand. So I don't know why that is, but it definitely seems to be a difference in downstate and upstate with that supermajority vote. So next slide, please. So this is the report of final local action. So the referring body has to file a report of final action with the county planning agency. If the referring body acts contrary to the recommendation of a modification or a disapproval, it's got to include the reasons in their report. And within 30 days of taking final action of a required referral, the local referring agency has to file a report as to the final action that was taken. And this, again, it could be the approval or the approval with modification, but you need to describe those modifications. And you need, if it's a denial, you should describe the reasons for that denial. Again, use a form or use a checklist to help you with that. Next slide. Oftentimes, there are changes to a project after it's already been sent out for referral. In this example, in this site plan, it looks like there are new access points proposed. But in this day and age, sometimes it happens because a project is scaled back because of financial reasons, right? The funding fell through, or maybe there's something showed up on the environmental review. But if those changes are substantial, then you need to start the process all over again and refer it to the county planning agency again. It's not correct procedure to continue and just think, well, we already submitted it once, that's good enough. A substantial change is practically a new application in a manner of thinking of it. So again, when in doubt, send it out. You don't want to be caught with a procedural imperfection that will leave you open to litigation down the road. So next slide, please. And what are the consequences of non-referral? So failing to refer an action, failing to send something for 239M, potentially puts your municipality in the crosshairs and vulnerable to litigation. It could even invalidate the entire action. It could take a project completely off the rails. And again, whether you do this because of ignorance, gee, we didn't know we had to do it, or gee, we didn't know that this project qualified for 239, that's no excuse. If you get challenged later on down the line, it could potentially invalidate the entire project. So an aggrieved party can challenge a local decision by filing an Article 78 for non-compliance of local and state regulations. And if it's found that the higher court system, that a correct referral procedures weren't followed, then the local decision can be invalidated. But a declaratory judgment action, not an Article 78 proceeding, is the proper method for challenging the validity of a legislative action, such as the adoption or the amendment of zoning. So if you find that you're updating your zoning or adopting it for the first time, and you didn't send it out for review, and somebody wanted to challenge it, they should do a declaratory judgment. They shouldn't do an Article 78 for this one. And if you are for adoptions or amendments of those zonings, there is a statute of limitation on how far back somebody can challenge you on that. And it's 6 years, and it's not 6 years for other kinds of challenges, but as far as the zoning goes, the statute of limitation is 6 years. Again, if you're using that checklist, you're making sure that this is not a procedural, box that you didn't check, that you didn't overlook. And it really is important that review board members take this seriously, because you don't want to leave your municipality open to litigation. It can be a black eye on your municipality, and it shows poorly for the board itself. And it's a lot of money to undo these things and to be hauled into court. And it's just better if you, prevention is 9/10 of the cure, as they say. So next slide. And really, this is our last slide. So how do you encourage referrals? How do we at the Department of State encourage, counties to reach out to their municipalities and encourage regular referrals? The number one thing would be to provide a form, a general form that your municipalities can use, and certainly guidance documents to your local boards. And, even a Q&A, what kinds of things should be referred? When should they be referred? I did give the example of Cayuga County. They, it's spelled out there what their, which municipalities are participating in the referrals and the exceptions. And it's really well put out there for anyone to look at. And you don't need to recreate the wheel. You can borrow from the inspiration of others, and certainly checklists of items to be sent. I know on some county checklists, they actually have a place to mark whether or not a public hearing will be necessary. And if you are doing a checklist, I would certainly include that, because I've seen some checklists that don't include that option. And when you don't include that option, it tells the review board that it's not necessary. And that may not be the case all the time. Sometimes a public hearing is necessary, and you'd want to have that checklist on there. And provide clear deadlines. New York State is really weird when it talks about days and deadlines. When you get into the nitty-gritty of statutes, sometimes the statutes are very specific and they use the phrase calendar days, or they just make the distinction between business days and weekdays and calendar days. And that can make the difference when when the clock is ticking, when people are trying to hit deadlines. So you'd want to make sure that those deadlines are crystal clear to review members and to applicants. And as soon as the county gets an application, someone should perform even a cursory administrative review, so that they can tell very quickly if anything is missing, because you don't want to have to send it back and then wait for another month for the review board to contact their applicant and say, oh, it's incomplete, we need more information. And now you're 2 or 3 months into this. As I already said, it can be very frustrating, and time is money. And, some projects are seasonally dependent on good weather to get moving. So you want to keep all of your projects moving, and a good review at the beginning can help with that. And don't be afraid to have a special meeting. If you find that you have an urgent local matter, an emergency meeting or a special meeting, do your best to post notice and comply with the open meetings law, despite the meeting being called urgent, emergency, or a special meeting. And distribute copies of General Municipal Law 239 L, M, and N, so that your review board members are familiar with it. And again, keep having trainings like this, and keep your phones open and your doors open to communication, so that people feel good about calling you with questions and they won't feel intimidated. And I think that is about all that I have to say. Ebony, do you have anything to add?
Nope, covered it.
All right.
Trish and Ebony, could you ever just take a peek at the questions that are in the Q&A box, and just, take care of whichever ones strike your fancy, and we can do some wrap up after Jen.
Sure. I did see one about early on about people's names. Where is that one?
I guess I'll stop sharing my screen and maybe that will help. There we go.
All right. So the first question is, can we refer something to the county planner for no other reason than it's controversial? I would say if the project is not triggered by the items listed in 239M, why would you send it out for county review? So maybe I'm not understanding that question. Did anyone want to clarify that question?
Maybe they can put it in the chat, maybe.
All right, so we can keep going, and when that answer comes up, maybe we'll return to it. So at what point should the ZBA refer a question to the county planning board? I would think the ZBA would first ask the question of the county planning department or the county planning agency. Is it a procedural question on the timeline of when to refer the project or something like that? Then they could ask either the county planning board or the county planner that. Heather, am I missing something about that question?
I'm not sure. Yeah, no, I think that covers it.
All right,
Okay.
Ebony, you want to get one?
Yeah, for a zoning board meeting, if letters from the public are submitted, do they have to be made public, scanned, and posted online, for instance, prior to the meeting? If so, should it include the name, address, and any other personal information about the author? I would say no. Really, the public, I mean, it can be made accessible to the public as like in the file. But in terms of posting that online, I don't believe that that's necessary. Trish, did you have any? I would not think that that would be necessary in terms of providing notice to the public and giving them well, I guess you could post the whole thing on your website and you would normally include your application documents and plans and things of that sort. But I don't know that I would put the letters of support or whatever the opposite word of that is in the online or.
He does go on to ask if the answer is no, then should those letters be read into the record?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so the idea is if these people were in public at the public hearing, the open meetings law is silent on whether or not the public can participate in a meeting. So that's up to the locality. As for a public hearing, the public has the right to speak. So do you have the right to ask someone to identify themselves? No. That is considered an invasion of privacy. So no one's got to identify themselves or write their name down on a paper or anything else. And the idea behind that is that it's the person's comment, an issue that is of importance. It's not the individual themselves. So if somebody is submitting letters and comments and all that, those can be posted online as part of the application. But if someone's just wants to post a message and it's in their email, like you don't have to include their email in their name. It's the comment in their issue that's important. But as far as the application, scanning the whole application, that would have a person's name and address in there. If there's sensitive information like bank account numbers or anything like that, that can be redacted. But did that cover it?
I think so.
I believe so, yeah. There was another question. Did I hear just before losing you all that documents provided by an applicant must be made available? I guess we just covered that question as well. Does the 500-foot range for adjacent municipalities include those that are over state lines? I'm not sure about this one. But I would argue that yes, it would be prudent to just at least provide them the notice that this is what's going on, across the across that boundary line. Again, because you're just being conscientious, you're being courteous and making them aware, any neighbor aware of what's happening nearby them. So I would say that it would be a good practice to do so, even if it isn't officially required. Trish, what are your thoughts?
I don't know the answer to that one. And since you guys are so close to the Connecticut border, I guess we will have to look into that one and get back to you unless Heather knows the answer to that one. We've never had that question before. It's a good one.
It's a good question. I mean, yeah.
I'm not sure if it's required. I want to say I've seen things come to us from just over the border. But I don't know if that was just sort of a nice neighbor courtesy or a requirement. So,
like I said, I think it would be a good practice, regardless of to whether it's required or not. 2 calendar days before, as in 2 days before, as in calendar days or business days. I'm not sure what that was referring to specifically.
oh, that was regarding if you're beyond the 30 days and the county has not responded. But if they respond 2 days prior to the meeting.
Oh,
you
is
still
that
have to
calendar
take-
days or business days?
Right.
Okay. I don't think the statute notes that. Am I wrong, Trish? I think I don't know that it says that, but I'm going off memory.
Yeah, I'm checking the notes and it doesn't, it just said, it doesn't say, I would say calendar days on this one.
I feel like calendar days is what we use for everything else regarding.
And it's really safest.
Yeah.
So it's erring on the side of caution there.
Yep.
Do calendar days. Report of final local action still required when a county says it's a matter of local concern. I mean, I would say so. Yes, if you refer an action to the county planning agency and they say, you know what, this is not something that that we need to be involved in, it's not regionally significant, etc. Yeah, why not still let them know what you decided on this application, just so that they can close the matter on their end completely. Why not? Are there restrictions on who from the local municipality can send referrals to the county? Can anyone send it? So I'm not sure if this means like a particular individual, if you're talking about an individual in a local municipality, or if we're talking about an entity like a board or something like that. I mean, we've covered it, but I'll say it again. Only the local governing body, planning board, and the ZBA, when it comes to local land use decisions, would be any of the folks that would send something to a county planning agency. And it just depends on which body has a decision-making power. And I would imagine anyone from that body, you could designate anyone, like the clerk or the town clerk, or on behalf of the local governing body. I mean, if we're talking about an individual, but I don't think the law is that specific. It's just the body itself that has the responsibility to make that referral. Am I reading that right?
You know what, Ebony, I think you're right. And I think this is a good time to remind boards that they should have rules and regulations that they adopt at the local level, because this is a good question. Like, when you're new to a board, or maybe you've had board turnover and you don't have that institutional knowledge, and you're like, well, I know we have to send it, but whose job is it to actually send it? Is it our board secretary? Is it our chair? Who's doing the signatures? All of these things should be spelled out ahead of time so that you're not scrambling. So that's a good question to come up. So I would recommend that you all have something at the local level for your board procedures, and that describes the referrals and who is technically responsible for being the last one to hand it off for the referral.
I like that.
There was one other well, there's a few more questions. I don't know how you want us to handle that, Heather.
Why
but
don't we hold off on
Okay.
these and we'll turn things over to Jen so she can talk about some Dutchess specifics, which might answer some of the questions, and then anything left we can handle at the end.
Okay.
So Jen, if you could share your screen.
Hold on. All right. Ooh, you don't want to see that, do you?
We don't see, we just see you.
You just see me. Okay.
Do you see
All
the
right.
share screen?
Okay. I did say share screen. Hold on. If I do this,
Yeah.
do you see? Okay, slide. Okay.
We can see your notes in the next slide, the preview though.
Okay.
Is there
All
a way
right.
to-
Yep. No,
Just-
that's going to be the next slide. That's weird. It says, what does the county not review?
Yeah, I think you need to put it in just full presentation mode.
Yikes.
Maybe, is that it? Now try advancing. There you go.
Okay. All right. You still see the other slides though too, don't you?
Nope.
No?
I just see, what does the county not review?
Okay. All right. So I just want to recognize we are at 6:30. So I promise to squeeze through these slides pretty rapidly. This is actually, my first slide was actually like blank. But what I wanted to just go through and I wanted to thank the Planning Federation for letting us tag on to this presentation, and for Trish and Ebony in your presentation. I haven't seen the county planning presentation from the Department of State in a really long time. So it was good to see it. And there was so much good information there and so many good questions. I'm just going to kind of go through what is different for Dutchess County than what was presented just a few minutes ago. One of the things is that in Dutchess County, we are the county planning agency that does the reviews, and that's given to us by it's actually given to the Commissioner of Planning and Development, Owen Rafter, who's also on the call today, through the Dutchess County Charter and Administrative Code. One of the things I thought you might be interested in is sort of the way that we carry out these reviews. We have 6 planners here. 2 of them are really in the transportation division. They have a smaller number of referrals and communities to kind of look after. And then we have 4 additional planners that review many more referrals and have many different communities kind of that they oversee. So when, we call them assigned planners, we can have up to 1 planner kind of looking over referrals and taking questions for up to like 7 different municipalities. There's 30 different municipalities here in Dutchess County. What does the county not review? All right, so I'm going to start here with a slide. What don't we review? Subdivisions. So we do not have the authority to review some subdivisions under General Municipal Law, Section 239N. And the other thing that we don't review, we have entered into intermunicipal agreements with all 30 of Dutchess County communities that started back in 2016. And our list of things that we say are exempt, that have no countywide or intermunicipal impacts, have remained the same. So their administrative amendments, their residential special permits, use variances and area variances for residential uses, and any type of renewal or extension that hasn't changed since the previous approval. Now, some things that we are noticing that are coming up that we might want to look at in the future include things like single family homes. Some municipalities are requiring site plan approval for single family homes. We are not interested in that. Barn conversions to accessory apartments, we're also not interested in that. But we will probably end up taking that up at the next time that this set of intermunicipal agreements expire, which I think is in 2023. So let me just go through here. What has the county done? What have we done in order to make referring actions to us easier? One of the things is we have what is called the referral identifier tool. This is our GIS connection page off of the Dutchess County website. I kind of made the page a little bit smaller so you can see where it's located. It's down here at the bottom. And this is a tool, it's GIS based, and this is what the Department of State was also talking about in their presentation, where we have put buffers and layers or buffers of all the different jurisdictional determinants that are listed in GML. And you can see there's a key over here. And if you are interested in finding out whether something has to be sent to the county, you can type in the search bar up here what the lot number is, and you will get a result. This is an example where here's the referral, or I'm sorry, the parcel ID number, and it has selected this yellow boundary, and you can see these are the jurisdictional determinants. And since this boundary hits one of these jurisdictional determinants, the municipality should send it in. And as Trish and Ebony said, if you're in doubt, just send it in. And I should just put in a small plug. If anyone is interested, there's going to be a class on county referral. Not county referral. The online tools, and also like the state's online tools, this Saturday from 10 until 12. And if you're interested in attending that, give Sean Carroll at Cornell a ring, and you'll be able to sign up for that. It's a virtual class, which will show you how to do this as well. All right, so the third thing that we have is RAMP. It actually stands for Referrals and Major Projects. This is the sign-in screen, and I'm on the beta site. I wanted just to show you what this is. What I'm going to do is I'm going to pretend to, I'm just going to share a couple screenshots that we have. And we're using Town of Amenia as an example. This is a tool that we had originally developed because we were getting a lot of incomplete referral, not full, municipalities weren't referring full statements. So this in part was to notify us that a referral was on its way, but also help municipalities make a complete full statement referral to us, something that I know we had talked about in the previous presentation a lot. Because once you have a full statement, it actually makes it easier for us to respond back to you in a timely manner, because we're not waiting, on missing information. So this is basically what a municipality will see on their end. It shows what the projects are, what the previous referrals were, what the action is, what the response is, whether it's pending or maybe it's local decision, and some of these key dates. What happens is that all 30 municipalities are trained and are using this. Either the planning board secretary or the zoning board secretary or the town clerk will go in here and create a new project. They get prompted here, and this is a way to assist them in either making a referral or not making a referral. So you can see here we've got a 239 cover sheet, which is for general municipal law, the zoning referrals, and a seeker cover sheet. So the municipal official will go in here and they'll include all of the pertinent information, who's referring it, the tax parcel number, so that they could put a lot number in. Immediately the address of the property will display, and the jurisdictional determinants will automatically pop up. But I want to call your attention to this box to begin with, is that this says here, exempt actions 239 review not required. So it helps them in terms of, first step thing, hey, you don't even have to fill this out if it's one of these. Then what happens is they'll check off what the action is. And this is just a seeker form. I'm going to go through, we don't have to worry about that one tonight. This is one that looks like it has already been populated. They have already entered in all the information. They've checked site plan here. So site plan is, and I'm going to go through these tabs at the top real quick. Site plan is the action that they're going to be, that they're asking us to review. So this is what happens. This tab pops up. So we went from the cover sheet to physical materials, and the materials here are specific depending on what action is being referred. So at the minimum, the county wants to see the application the seeker, any seeker documentation, and what the proposed site plan is. We've also given clues underneath here so that you can tell, what might be included in a proposed site plan, because the person who's actually filling all this information out might not be a person who actually knows what everything should be included in there. They might say, oh, is a landscaping plan, should that be part of it? Should a signage plan be part of that? This gives them additional cues to say whether or not something should be included in this proposed site plan component of the referral. We also have things here that are optional if a municipality wants to indicate to us what is being referred, and other if it's not listed here. So onto our next slide here. Attachments. This became very important in COVID. This was our first way of enabling communities to actually send us electronic referrals. Now, I don't know if there's other community or other counties that are actually accepting electronic submissions, but we do for limited types of referrals. And I should say this in reverse. We actually, the only referral that we don't accept entirely electronically at this time are site plans. And the reason why is because site plans can be, very large pieces of paper with a lot of small little fine print that it's very hard to review on screens of our size. I don't even know if you were able to put it on a TV, whether it would actually be, legible or not. So what we do is we've said to all 30 municipalities that, hey, it's okay, upload your site plan to the county, and we can begin an early review. But then you still have to send the paper copy to us. So this attachments tab, where we didn't think we would be accepting anything electronically, all of a sudden became very important, and it allowed us to do our jobs and do them efficiently and do them from home for a certain period of time. This is the response tab to RAMP. You can see here we had checked a matter of local concern. You have all the important dates here entered, but what I really want to call your attention to, if you are a user of RAMP, is that this section over here shows you all of the referrals that have been submitted, and you can get all of the responses from 2001 on. I think it is actually really a useful tool for municipalities if you ever want to go back and see what maybe we had said before or when something had come in. All right, so let me move on to the next one. So this is an area, and this is right here at the very bottom. It says add correspondence. This is where a municipality under municipal response can browse their computer and upload the notification as to what happened with the referral in terms of the what is the final what was that called, the final not final determination, but the report of final action.
Yeah.
Oh, yep. So municipalities can actually upload report of final actions there. We at the county want to make a rule, and I'm going to talk about this in a little while, that if it is of local determination, if it's local concern with comments or just a local decision without any comments, that we are not necessarily interested in those. If you want to upload those are fine. I don't know if anyone has ever been sued for not giving what the final determination was back to the county. But we do always want to see the ones that require a supermajority. I can tell you those are very few. We only have between like 2 and 3% of those per year. Just so that you have an idea, in the mid 1990s, we were probably reviewing about 650 referrals per year. Now we're down to about 400, 440, like in the mid 440s. A lot of that had to do with the market, the economy, certainly COVID, and also because we were able to get rid of all of those, like those sheds, decks, and pools, the things that we have the intermunicipal agreement for that we know are not of countywide or intercommunity concern. So let's see. Okay, so just quickly, this program will allow you to go to Google Maps. It will be able to zoom you right in. You can use the plus and minus keys to zoom. You can also use the little man and put them down and see where you are. Bing Maps is also available in this program. Communications tab is very important. We try to use the communications tab to communicate back and forth with municipal officials about the most, very important things about a referral. So, if somebody wants to say, we don't want to withdraw the project, but we want to withdraw this from your review right now. It's going to come in totally different. So, you know, we don't want you to actually go ahead and complete this review. We would put that in the communication tab, and the municipal official, whoever's submitting it, will get a notification on the other end. And this is part of the record. So this is kept within this RAMP program, this RAMP application. The last thing about RAMP is contacts. The person who is inputting all of this information and actually submitting the referral to us can add new party over here. They can add people. And when we have issued our response or our recommendation back, all of those people receive a PDF of what our response was. Okay, so that is RAMP. Let me see. I don't think I have any more slides for that. But what I wanted to tell you, and how do you, so click to exit. Okay, can you still see me? Hello?
Yes, yes. I'm
Okay,
sorry. I was talking while I had mute on. Yes.
Okay, all right. So I'm running through this really quickly. So the new things that I want to tell everybody about what's new for 2022 is that we've had some rules that we have had here at the department, but we really haven't had a place to put them all. So we have already developed a draft new referral guide, similar to, you know, how many other municipalities or how many counties in the state already have, that talks about the entire GML 239 process. But we're making this much more specific to Dutchess County. So it will include everything that I've spoken about today, you know, about the intermunicipal agreements and RAMP and the referral identifier tool. It will, you know, go into discussion about all of that and give you, you know, places to go see them, websites, that kind of thing. But the other thing is that we are going to include rules in it. One of the major ones is that the 30 days is going to start for us when we receive the full statement. That could be electronically, or it could be electronic and paper, or it could be just paper. So if it is paper, or if a component of the referral is paper, it's when the paper gets here to the office. So we're not going to go by the postmark date. That way we are able to do that quick administrative review and say, okay, is this complete? And, you know, and that way kind of everybody is sort of on the same playing field. So, you know, everyone's getting 30 days from when the county actually receives everything. We do have what we do, you know, occasionally, and sometimes more often than we might want, is we'll get additional referred material before, you know, the referral will have been made, but then, you know, when we log it in and we start counting the 30 days, but then all of a sudden something else comes in, right? So maybe the site plan changed a little bit, or there's a different landscaping plan, or building elevations are now included. What we have historically done is said, okay, we're going to acknowledge that you sent us something new, and we're going to change the date when it's required to reflect that you basically didn't have a full statement when you had first sent it to us. And so now with the additional information that you sent, that's going to start the 30-day time frame, or restart the clock essentially. Now, we don't want anyone to say, you know, we want to get these referrals done as quickly as possible. And just because a new piece of material is sent in does not mean that we're going to take the full 30 days to review it again. What we'll do is, you know, some things are really substantial. We've had applications come in for site plan without a site plan. You know, we had the application and you might have had the secret material, but the site plan wasn't there. And of course, that's key, right? So, so we're not saying that we're going to take the full 30 days, but we are going to change the date that is the 30-day date, just to be consistent across the board. As we had talked about a little bit before, we can have an agreed upon date other than the 30 days. So we are still talking to our legal department, and what we think we're going to do is put that in the correspondence. So if a municipality says, hey, you know what, I just gave you an entire comprehensive plan, an entire zoning code, and we might say, hey, we really would like more than 30 days to review that, and the municipality might agree with us, what we're going to do is make a rule that has to be in correspondence, and that the municipality and our department agree upon a new and different date. Again, we've already referred to the report of final action saying that we are not going to burden the communities with having to report final actions unless we had required a supermajority. Like I said, there's only a few of those that happen per year, but if you are welcome to upload them to that correspondence little plus sign there in RAMP if you'd like to. The other thing is that we're going to make some changes to RAMP, and I just got done talking to our Office of Computer and Information Systems about these changes to see if they can happen, and they seem to think that they can, and probably around the end of March. So with regard to these electronic submittals, when RAMP was first launched, it was not supposed to be a way to submit electronic referrals. We had the attachment tab for things like SWIPs and traffic impact studies, something that might have a lot of pages that we might not have been reviewing every single page, but we wanted it to be easy for the communities to not have to print all that material out. It was a way for them to upload those types of things to the system so that we could review them. So what we're going to do, though, is now that we have switched to accepting electronic versions of things, we're going to actually move the physical materials page and the attachments page together. And so you're going to get one page out of those. And I don't know if I should even try to share my screen again, but it will be much more intuitive, and it just makes sense that if you have a site plan and you need an application, you should be submitting an application, seeker material, and a proposed site plan, then what you would do is just upload, and then say, oh, and we're going to send the paper copy of the site plan. And it would be the same thing for variances. So the variances, I believe, say application, seeker, and the 4 or 5 part test. And so they upload. We think that will be very helpful and much more useful, and it's much more intuitive. It just makes sense. So other changes to RAMP is that we are going to ask municipalities, this is getting back at the full statement issue again, to say whether or not a full statement that they have actually sent in a full statement to us. We have to figure out where exactly that's going to be in RAMP, and believe me, we'll let you know. We'll have more information on this forthcoming in the next couple of months. But we want to have the municipalities take an active role in saying, okay, this is a full statement. There was a poll that we were going to do in terms of when is a referral actually, who decides when to submit a referral to us, which is something that I know Trish and Ebony were talking about at the very end, which is very interesting to us. A lot of times, I think that board secretaries will get it in and immediately send it to the county. Or you might have somebody at the town hall that looks at it and says, okay, this is good enough to send, whether it be a zoning enforcement officer, consulting planner. They might say, okay, yep, go ahead, go send it to the county. I do know that there are boards that actually vote on when to send it to the county. And I can tell you that the boards that vote to send it to the county usually have the most complete applications. Because I think that they've taken them in, everyone sort of looked at it, the board has said, hey, we need more information, and then they go ahead and send it to the county. One of the things that we are a little bit concerned about is that, we always like to get our input in first. We don't want to be necessarily the last person at the doors, and all of a sudden something comes up and, everyone spent time and money and effort into creating plans. We'd like to get some of our feedback out early. So the difference with this is that we'd ask the boards to say when something's complete, but we're happy to accept a referral if it's not complete. And then at some point when it does become complete, then the municipality can hit the button and say, okay, go ahead, county, and review. So we can begin an early review, again, just kind of like we do with the site plans. See, what else do I have here? Oh, another significant change is that the municipalities for years have used our standard cover sheet. It has all the project information at the top and then the county's response at the bottom. And that county response so we always have to include the cover sheet if we have a letter. So it's always that we send back to the communities is the cover sheet and whatever correspondence we might attach, or if it's just a local concern and there's no county comments attached, it's just the cover sheet. What we're going to do is instead switch to having a submittal sheet and a response sheet. So if you're going to be submitting something in paper to the county, what you would do is right now, the municipality prints off the cover sheet, attaches it with the paper submission, and then sends it to us. This is just going to look different. It's just going to be basically the top half of what is already on the cover sheet. Then we're going to have what materials were submitted electronically and which ones are coming in by paper copy. And that's what will be attached and then sent to the county. And then what we will do is we supposedly are going to have the ability to have a Microsoft document so we can start editing our response back to you. It will automatically put all of the information that is included when the planning board or zoning board secretary first types in all the information. And then we will have one response sheet back to you. So you won't get a cover sheet and a letter, you'll just get a response. And it will, if there's no comments attached, it'll say no comments attached. Any type of comments will be right there on the form. So in sort of closing here, I'm sorry, I was trying to run through everything so you got as much information as quickly as possible. The other thing that we are going to be working on is that we have historic referrals back to, I think it's 1967, that are over in our record storage area. So this is a long-term project, but hopefully we'll be able to get all of those and all of our responses back to communities into RAMP over the course of probably a couple of years. So with that, I will turn it back over to Heather. And I don't know, I know we're running here on time, but if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them. And I don't know, Owen's here too, if he's got anything he'd like to add.
I don't see any questions coming in now. We've cleared out some of them while you were speaking. Jen, I just wanted to, and I may have missed that you said it, but all of these changes, upcoming changes that you just reviewed for referrals in Dutchess County, when will those go into effect?
So the changes to the rules, so about the receipt, about making agreed upon dates, and there was, I think it had to do with uploading the final report of action. Those rules are going to go into effect on January 1st. We're going to have a new referral guide that comes out probably December, January, so that you get it early. We'll probably send a cover letter with, highlighting what the changes are. But then the changes with RAMP are going to be a little bit more gradual. We're hoping that, that they'll be able to be accomplished by the end of March. Okay.
But the procedural stuff, the new year is when those trigger. Great.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'm not seeing any more Q&A, so I think we're good on that front. Before I sort of release you all, I just wanted to thank everybody for your continued attention. Honestly, everybody stuck through till the very end. I'm so impressed, and I will go in and adjust the attendance email that you will receive from Zoom to reflect the full 2 hours of your attendance at this class tonight. So I want to thank our speakers, Jen and Trish and Ebony. This was clearly very informative. I'm glad this Department of State sort of dusted this class off. I think it was really helpful and good to be able to focus just on this process. There's clearly a lot of need for this detailed look at the referral process. So again, thank you very much. I will, you'll get your attendance certificates tomorrow from Zoom. I will post the recording and the handouts either Friday or early next week. Sometimes it takes us a little bit to get that recording, YouTube friendly or whatever our computer wizards do with it. So keep an eye out for that. And with that, thank you very much. Happy rest of 2021, and we'll see you again in the new year.